what would be some of the best advice that you could give to somebody that was interested in following in your footsteps? I'm going to school and I'm going to do this thing, but I also want to do music. Is it possible to do both? Do I burn the boats?
Figure out what you're truly interested in. And you can't figure it out just by sitting there and thinking about it. You got to get out there and get out of your comfort zone. Like, absolutely get out of your comfort zone as much as you can, because you're just going to be complacent otherwise.
What would you say is the most common mistakes that people make when starting a business partnership?
Not discussing with their partner what the expectations are.
Rules?
Like, rules, yeah. Like, okay, what percentage, ownership are we talking about here? But that's one of those things to avoid. Just put it in an email. Don't talk about terms you don't understand. You're just going to get yourself in trouble.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to a new episode of Free Game with Crack. Today I have Chris Newberg. Chris, how's it going?
Good, Crack. How you doing?
Good, very good. So how would you introduce yourself? Let's say right now, a random person, they don't know anything about you, and they're about to tune in to hear about your story. How would you describe yourself to them? Like, what is it that you do? Who is Chris Newberg?
All right. Well, you caught me in the middle of an identity crisis, kind of.
Really?
But, well, I guess we always evolve. But I think first and foremost, I call myself a musician. Then I guess we go to career, attorney. It's also important to mention that I'm a father and a husband.
How many kids?
I'm a human.
Kids?
I got 3 kids, three young ones, 6 and younger.
Okay. And musician, how many years have you been a musician?
I've been playing on stages in bands for 16 years.
Okay.
At this point. So quite a while. I've been a musician my whole life, though, and that's kind of why that one's first, because really music has always been the thing that's kind of like moved me the most, and it's always kind of been the stable thing there. And law was kind of a derivative of my goal to be involved in music some way. So really, I kind of have music to thank for everything. So that's why I kind of hold that one up first.
And how we met was through music. So about 2 years ago, I managed a music artist named Speed Gang. So shout out to Speed Gang. And that's how we met.
That's right.
You were representing Speed Gang at the time, with us coming up with a management agreement contract. And we met at your office and took some awesome pictures to announce the signing.
Right. That was about 2 years ago. Yeah, that was February, I think, right? Of
Yes.
23. Yeah. Yeah. No, that
It was exactly 2 years. Oh, no.
it might be
The
close.
26th? I don't remember. It was definitely February, though.
It was, yeah. Yeah. No, I remember that. And yeah, so we met through Speed Gang. I, of course, was aware of you. I'd known Speed Gang, I think, since like 2016 or something, like a while.
How did you guys meet?
He came into my office and they were looking for some help trying to kind of structure some things, get a business put in place, because he was kind of taking off on YouTube a little bit and was like, hey, this is like a business, let's treat it like one. So so we got that going and then, we kind of stayed in touch a little bit. I monitored him, kept an eye on him. And then he started kind of blowing up again, like 2019, was getting, A&R calls from major labels. So we kind of worked through some of that. And then I was a little bit closer, a little bit more involved in the process from that point forward. And, one of the big things was finding someone to kind of manage the back end, which, would be a manager role. And
Yeah.
I tried kind of wearing that hat for a while and realized it was a full-time job, really, to do it well. And
Would you say that it's easy to be a music manager?
no, it's extraordinarily difficult to be a music manager. And I've dabbled with it in a number of different contexts. It wasn't just, like the little bit of work that I tried to do with Speed Gang. I had another rapper that got signed to a major label out of Muskegon that I was managing for a while. And I mean, being in a band, I wouldn't say that I'm managing the band or anything like that, but it's just kind of like keeping things on the rails, and it's somebody else's life. So there's a fine line you have to walk between being too controlling and asserting yourself too much, but also like doing what it is that you have to do, what you promised, essentially.
It's hard. It's hard. I have a love-hate relationship with music management. There's definitely pieces there where I'm like, man, I love this shit. This is great. Like, this is maybe what I was destined to be. And then there's parts of it, and it's like, I hate this shit. I don't want to do this.
Right. Yeah. There's probably like not a whole lot of middle ground, right? Like it's either awesome or it's really hard. And the times when it's really hard, it's probably because, there's a grind between the manager and the artist, and you've got personalities. And I mean, artists are a little bit more, they have a little different temperament than, business people, for example, or even just non-artists. Everybody kind of thinks differently, and it's like, this is my art, this is my life. How dare you try to stand in the way of it? And then it's like, thank you so much for helping me. And I don't know, I didn't experience any of that with Speed Gang or any of the other people I managed, but my band had a manager for a while based in Nashville, and I know we kind of put him through that.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the name of your band?
Gunner and the Grizzly Boys.
Gunner and the Grizzly Boys?
Yeah.
How long have you guys been together?
Since 2009. We started at MSU, and
hey, that's right by here.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. We're in Lansing here. So yeah, we got started in a house off of Center Street there in East Lansing. Practiced in the attic of our buddy Shane's house a lot. He was in the band then. And yeah, man, the rest was history. Our first show was opening for Justin Moore at the Intersection. It was sold out. It was like just getting baptized by fire. It was fantastic.
Yeah, getting baptized by fire. That's great.
Yeah.
What are some career highs that you've had so far? Where I guess what I like to say is there's moments in life where we look around and think to ourselves, I must be doing something right. But then there's also the opposite, where there's moments in time where we look around and think to ourselves, I must have did something wrong.
Right.
Like, how did I end up here? So what were some moments that you've had so far along your career where you look around and you're like, man, I must be doing something right?
Man, well, if we're talking about music, I've been lucky a lot, and I can't really thank anything but kind of dumb luck for some of those successes. But I can think back to, like 2014, we released a song called Standard American that ended up getting a lot of traction on country radio, through the efforts of our team and the production and the songwriting. I mean, everything kind of aligned perfectly, and that song just hit for us. And that opened the door to festivals all across the country, good paying festivals, things that allowed us to travel and really kind of see the world, and feel like we're legit professional musicians in the process. And I remember kind of, it's like a kind of a pinch me moment, because I always wanted to be a musician, but I never thought that it would ever materialize into anything like that, because I don't really have a ton of like stage charisma, and I'm not writing songs and singing anything like that. I'm playing guitar, you know what I mean? So being on some of those stages, kind of seeing the reaction and just getting a pat on the back for that felt like crazy. Like, how did this happen? There are people working way harder than me doing this.
What's the biggest size audience that you guys have performed in front of?
I don't know. I would say probably 50 to 60,000.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
Yes.
Yeah, that would have been, I think that would have been, it was, well, so we did Faster Horses a couple of times.
Big festival.
That's a big one. Yeah, and that one's fantastic. Backstage is amazing, and that's kind of a pinch me moment too. You're back there and there's like, they bring a pool in, for the artists to swim in, and there's just like tacos, there's a chiropractor, a massage therapist. I mean, it's all free, and it's like, am I in the right place here? You know what I mean? And I don't. We had. I don't know which one was the biggest, but there was one out in Iowa too, opening for Kid Rock. That was pretty cool in 2015 or 2016. There was like a police escort out of town. Again, another one of those pinch me moments. Like, do they know who we are? Like, did they hire the wrong person?
Yeah. What would you say is like the breakdown in a month in your life? Like, how do you divide that up right now between father, husband, legal, lawyer things, the musician? Yeah, like what percentage would you say?
So yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, kind of in the middle of an identity crisis, and it's not really a crisis, just a shift.
Evolution.
You're
evolving.
So being a father requires me to, I'm compelled to be as good of a father as I can be, which means spending as much time being a father as I can spend. So that's a huge part of it now. It used to be music was at least 50% of the week. Whether I'm out of town, whether I'm practicing or recording or doing something related to music, that was a big part of it. I became a lawyer in 2014, right as the music thing was taking off. So it was kind of 50-50 there for a while. Probably wasn't the best husband there for a while. In terms of just, having time to devote. And then when we had kids, COVID hit, so music kind of cut out for a bit. And now, I mean, really, in the course of a month, I'm working 5 days a week, 8-10 hour days, sometimes more if it's a tough day, and then trying to squeeze in as much family time as possible. And it shifts in the summer, maybe throw a couple shows in there, but really that's kind of the grind, man. I'm really in that late 30s dad grind mode right now.
Yeah, me too.
Right.
Me too. Same boat. With evolving, like, you notice a big shift in your priorities as you get older,
I do. I mean, they change, right? So I can't put my family low on the totem pole. I mean, I don't want to. I first of all, I have to be better than that. Second of all, I want to be better than that, and I do get a lot of fulfillment from watching people that look like me and act like me turn into me. Hopefully, not exactly like me, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think that there is a lot of fulfillment with it, but there's also a lot of stress, man. I mean, to be honest, like being a dad kind of sucks sometimes. It's a lot of work, and when you're trying to impress your bosses and impress your clients and impress judges and be good at your job, it can be stressful. I mean, either one of those could be a complete full-time job, and so
yeah,
I don't know. I don't have it that bad. I realize that everybody works, that has kids because they have to.
Yeah.
It's just that season of life trying to kind of work through it, and trying to also keep a hand on the things that give me a lot of personal enjoyment outside of those two things.
What would you say is like typically the most stressful part of what you do? Career-wise.
Career-wise, yeah. So if we're talking about law, man, deadlines are really tough. So I do litigation, which means I'm suing people or defending people who are getting sued, and judges are in charge of that process, and they definitely let you know. And,
They definitely let you know. Give an example of a time where, or in a way that a judge can let you know that they're in charge.
Well, I mean, they'll with all due respect to the judges, of course, sometimes they make decisions that seem completely arbitrary sometimes. It's like, I've been working this up to get to this point. It seems like the judge has been on board. And then you file something, asking for like a slight extension or asking to get the relief you've been looking for. And then it just gets flat out denied. And it's like, where did that come from? Now, I mean, do I have to start over at square one? I guess one example, and it's kind of deep into the legal technicalities, but like when you file a lawsuit, you get a summons from the court. That's the document that tells the defendant that they're being sued and that they have to, respond to the complaint within a certain amount of time. That summons can expire. It's set to expire within 91 days if you don't serve the defendant. Sometimes, when a defendant's hard to find, you push up against that date, and so you go to file a motion to extend the summons. I remember there was one week, this was probably 2 months ago, I filed a motion to extend the summons, and I filed two of them actually in two different cases. One of them was just flat out denied, which resulted in that case being dismissed, which sucked. We had to start over. And the other case, the judge extended the summons out like 9 months, which is just unheard of as well. So it's like just two completely different results, two different judges, two factually similar scenarios. And so, I mean, we're trying to juggle these different personalities, the fact that, you got people making your decisions and everybody thinks differently. So you try to kind of anticipate it and you really, zone in on what you think is going to happen. And then sometimes you can just be utterly shocked and disappointed with the outcome.
Yeah.
And your clients are too. And that's the hard part is when, the client's like twisting your arm over and you're like, I tried.
Yeah. I want to talk more about your journey. So like when you were your senior year in high school, was your career plan something different? Like completely different?
Completely different. Yeah, completely different.
What it was?
I wasn't sure. I knew that I wasn't sure. I think I had an inclination. My family does work in the dental world. My mom's a hygienist. My dad makes like crowns and bridges, you know, so dental devices, I guess. Neither of them are a dentist, but I went to school and I knew that, okay, like 4 years, I don't know if I'm going to figure out what I want in 4 years, so I'm going to go for like a pre-something degree. So I think it was like pre-med, like pre-dental, which I'm glad I didn't do because I would have been terrible at that job. I really don't like the human body in that sense. I'm not into like gross stuff or blood or, really kind of getting too handsy, especially like with people's mouths,
Where'd you go to school at?
MSU.
Oh, awesome.
Yep. So I changed majors a few times. Eventually, I think it was like probably my sophomore year, and in love with music the whole time, of course, and kind of like really getting deeper into it as I am discovering new artists and kind of digging back into some stuff that I really liked from my childhood, like really immersing myself in as much of it as I can. And I'm thinking like, I need to do something in music, but I can't be a musician. You know what I mean? Like that's not in the cards. So I was thinking, well, I like Ari Gold from Entourage. Maybe I'll be a lawyer, get a law degree. Maybe I can do like an agent's, duties or something. So I basically changed my major to communications because there is no pre-law, and kind of skated through college the rest of the way, which was nice. And then I've gotten to law school, and when I was in law school, the band hit. So it was like, okay, well, I had made plans to be a lawyer, but let's see if this musician thing works. And kind of had two options there for a while. And I don't know if I really gave 100% to either of them, but it worked out.
Okay. How many years did you go to school before law school?
So I took a victory lap and made it 5 years undergrad. Did the same thing in law school, made it 4 years instead of 3.
Okay.
But I was busy, and I figured like, man, I'm kind of like, I'm getting financial aid. I'm able to like tour the country while maintaining some classes.
You're doing music during this?
Yeah.
Okay. I should ask, when did you start doing music? Even like the first time you started messing around with a guitar?
Oh, I probably would have been like 8 or 10 at home playing piano. I think my parents got a keyboard for my sister because she wanted to take piano lessons, my younger sister. And I don't know, I heard Fear Elise on it because it had some pre-recorded songs, and it also had a screen that like showed you how to play, it would like show you the keys and you could kind of play along. And I was just obsessed, and I learned it like that night. Like the main refrain part of it. And I was hooked, man. Like I loved playing piano. I still love playing piano. We got a piano in the house, and I play it as much as I can, until I have to shut it off because it's too loud. But yeah, so it evolved. I started playing guitar in high school because I don't know, I guess like all teenagers in that boat, I started thinking, oh, piano's not very cool. I don't know, it's kind of lame. I don't want to go to a recital. I don't want my friends knowing that I'm in a piano recital.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel differently about that now, but it's like guitar's cool, dude. So
which one do you think is harder to learn for the average person? Learn how to play the guitar, learn how to play the piano? I
think guitar's probably harder.
Okay.
I don't know. I think piano's nice because it's graphically laid out. You've got octaves that they repeat, and so you can play the same thing down here in a C position as you can play up here, and it sounds the same, just a few octaves different. So I that was a good visual learner for me. And like I said, I learned piano kind of. I eventually learned how to read sheet music and then forgot it, but
then forgot it.
Yeah.
Key takeaway there. You can play great music yourself and be a musician for many years and achieve and accomplish a lot of cool shit without the need of sheet music.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, like when I first picked up the piano, it was about the visual component, learning it from the screen there. And then I got into lessons and started doing the sheet music thing. And I don't know, lessons were great. I think that I learned a lot of muscle memory stuff there that stuck, but I didn't learn anything about creating music or like accompanying another musician. It was more like, here's a written piece of music, now play it.
And play it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it wasn't like I was learning Beatles songs and I go jam at a party or something,
Okay. So then you guys started a band. And then what was like the first bit of traction that you guys got?
Yeah, so I graduated college in 2010, which is kind of right as the band was getting ready to like launch for the summer that year. And it's Gunnar and the Grizzly Boys. So it's Gunnar. He's the singer and main songwriter. It's actually his name. It's a Swedish name.
It's a dope ass name for a rock star. Shout to Gunnar.
So he had been in some bands before, and he's super charismatic and had his own kind of following already. So it was kind of turnkey for us, and we were getting good attention. So we, in that summer after I graduated college, kind of waiting to start law school, I'd moved back to Grand Rapids, which is kind of where I was from. And we just played around Grand Rapids a lot, and then started law school. And the music thing slowly kept kind of snowballing and growing as we, played more. We played a ton back in those days, and, released more music. And then by 14, by the year that I graduated law school, 4 years down the road, it was, a full-fledged, obligation. I mean, it was life at that point in time, so I did manage to get through law school while doing all that. I didn't, I'm not like on the dean's list or anything, but I got the paper and I got the license. So.
Okay. And then, so once you graduated, that's when you guys were doing the most shows around this time?
Yeah. I mean, it was busy. And so like when you graduate law school, you don't get a license automatically. You've got to take the bar exam. And the passage rate in Michigan at that time was terrible. It's still terrible. It's a hard exam. You know what I mean? Like, I think you figure like half the people in the room are not going to pass.
Really?
So I was freaking out, like, oh man, I was kind of too busy looking at guitars and guitar amps when I was in class. And, my grades, I probably wasn't in the upper half of the class in terms of grades. Like, how am I going to be on the right side of this 50%? So I had to actually kind of take a break from the music and graciously, the band made it work. And it turns out I ended up missing kind of a bunch of stinker shows.
Really?
Anyway, ones that were booked like a year or two before that we were just fulfilling contracts. I kind of felt bad, but yeah, so I just hunkered down for 4 months and studied for the bar exam all day, every day, and passed it. I had to.
How long does the test take?
It's 2 days, 8 hours a day.
8? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's not fun, and but once you pass it, you passed it. And then you're like, okay, yeah, let's make the test harder now. Kicking the ladder away.
Is it like a fee you pay to take the test, so that way if you don't pass, then like if you had to continue to keep taking the test, you keep paying a fee, or how does it work? So
yeah, there's a couple issues, a couple good reasons to want to pass it quickly. There is a fee. It's like $1,000, maybe $1,500 to just apply for the test, to take it. Everybody is signing up for commercial bar review courses, which is just, it's like going back to school. It's kind of a full-time thing all day, every day, 4 or 5 days a week. And though that costs $2,000-$3,000, you don't have to do it. You don't have to buy that to take the exam, but it's a good idea. And I think the biggest issue is just that there's only 2 exams a year, one in July and one in February, I think. So if you don't pass in July, you're kind of shit out of luck for like 6 months, So how are you going to keep yourself alive? How are you paying your rent? How are you paying your loans back? So it was like crucial that I passed, and I would have been very kind of I would have been probably rethinking my decision had I failed it the first time. Probably would have had to take it a second time just to give it a good shot. But yeah, man, it's extraordinarily stressful, and I guess it kind of trains you for the profession. It doesn't get a whole lot better after that. But luckily I passed.
So once you pass, now you're certified, or what do you get when you pass the bar test?
So you get you become a licensed attorney with the state of Michigan, and it's a state by state basis. Some states will let you practice if you have passed in another state. Some states won't. So it's kind of just a crapshoot there. So I mean, it's obviously good. You don't have to. In Michigan, you don't have to like take any other tests. There's no continuing legal education requirements. So like the only way I can lose my license is if I don't pay my dues, or if I get disbarred or suspended for doing something wrong,
How often are dues due?
Every year.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a few $100. So.
Okay. Nice. And so now you can legally practice, right?
Yep.
And then what, do you apply at firms, or what's the process?
Yeah, so one of the requirements that Cooley had, I went to Cooley in Grand Rapids, in order to graduate, you had to kind of choose between one of these 3 like non-classroom type of, credit sources, I guess. And 2 of them didn't really sound that interesting. So I went with the third, which was an externship, So I applied for externships, obviously, before Well, this would have been the semester before my last semester because my externship was my last semester. So applied. I got a placement at a firm in Grand Rapids called Rodenhouse Law Group. Great folks there. They accepted me with open arms, and I was again like really happy and gracious for that because I mean there's like 300 law students in Grand Rapids, kind of flooding the market, and so it's pretty competitive. And I don't know, I don't feel like I really sold myself that much, but either way, got in there. Externed there my last semester of law school, and it kind of paved the way for a job offer contingent on me passing the bar. So another good reason to pass the bar. I've got a job offer that I need to take advantage of.
What type of cases did you do at first, or has that changed from cases you do now, from cases you did then, or is it the same category? Or
it's pretty much all the same. Yeah, it's I think of like the practice of law being in pillars, at least if you're in private practice. I mean, there's lots of stuff you can do with the government or, administrative law, but, in private practice, you've got criminal, defense work, you've got family law, like divorces, child custody, and you've got civil, which is basically everything else. And I didn't have an interest in criminal law. I didn't have an interest in dealing with people's divorces. So civil was, the logical choice. And, I've always been interested in business, and I've run some businesses, and I have some understanding of how, accounting functions work, and I mean, just kind of like the way that the business world moves. And so it was an easy transition for me to get into like business litigation, which is, suing over breach of contract issues, partnership disputes, if two people are in business together and then one runs off with the company or the money or whatever, I mean, all kinds of weird cases, and I've had a lot of strange ones over the past 11 years, but it's really kind of stayed in that lane, and now I do more, even more obscure civil stuff than I used to. I think that's kind of what I enjoy and what people tend to call me for these days.
What would you say is the most common mistakes that people make when starting a business partnership? Real quick, I want to introduce you guys to Royal Legacy Clothing. If you didn't know, I'm the co-owner. My best friend, we started this in 2013. What I picture when I think of Royal Legacy Clothing, it's the person that has tenacity. It's the person that they continue to show up. They don't give up. It's the person that arrives early and stays late. They have that hunger inside of them, that dog in them. And it's a cool feeling when I see people out and they're wearing Royal Legacy Clothing. It's something that has meaning to it. This is our current drop right here. Appreciate all you guys' support. Check out royallegacyclothing.com. Don't forget to use coupon code CRACK.
Well, okay, maybe it's not discussing with their partner what the expectations are. Rules. Yeah, like, okay, what percentage, ownership are we talking about here? What's your investment? What's my investment? Having an understanding is huge. Making sure that understanding is documented is also huge. Even a text message is better than nothing. I've had a case where it went to trial in front of a jury, and it was a partnership dispute, and they intentionally kept everything off of paper because it would have complicated some of the contracts they were trying to get. Now, I mean, I'm not going to even open Pandora's box there, but so nothing was documented. Everything was just kind of between them. So we look at the other, I guess you call it indicia of a partnership, the signs, the implications of one. It's like, okay, there's smoke, there's fire. Started looking for the smoke, and that's how you litigate those cases. But if people just put it in writing, an email, a text message, that's perfect. And I think another mistake that people make when going into partnerships is maybe documenting something the wrong way. Like if you don't have a lawyer working for you, you probably shouldn't go find a partnership agreement on the internet and have your partner sign it. I know that I'm saying make sure it's in writing, but like be very cautious of what that writing says, because I've had other cases where people got into business with each other. One, my client contributed a patent to the company. The other side was going to contribute some manufacturing efforts and try to, I guess, exploit this patent, this product, on the open market. And the other side basically just said, well, thanks, but I think that we're invested enough. We're just going to kind of sit here, and my client's older, and I don't know if they thought maybe his health wasn't so good. It's like they were just going to try to squat on the patent for a while. and clog it up. And he couldn't get out of the business relationship because of the way the partnership agreement was drafted. He couldn't get his patent out of there.
Really?
So it was a really crummy situation, I feel. And I it's one of those things that weighs on you. I feel terrible that I can't help this guy, But that's one of those things to avoid. Like, just put it in an email, Don't talk about terms you don't understand. You're just going to get yourself in trouble,
If somebody wanted legal help, say specifically your help, what is typically the process? Like, how do people find you? Or I guess with everything that I do, it's the social media world. So it would be if I wanted to cut hair and get people to book me to cut hair, I'm going to make a lot of content showing me cut hair, have a link to book me on services. So how does a lawyer promote themselves?
Right. Well, I mean, you'd probably kill it in legal marketing because you've got the know-how and the swagger to do that. You know what I mean? I've never used social media for that. I mean, I've obviously got like a Facebook page and whatnot, and I talk about things that I find interesting in the law as they come up or cases I'm working on. I mean, if it's something that I think friends who aren't lawyers are going to like, and that can generate some traffic. But really, I mean, referrals are huge. Word of mouth is huge.
Seems like it'd be a lot of word of mouth.
Yeah, there is a lot, And so I mentioned, starting at Roden House Law Group, I'm now with Kuiper Kramer in Grand Rapids. I moved a couple years ago. And I mean, the phone just rings all day there. You know what I mean? And it's not like they're doing anything really on social media or dumping a whole lot of money into SEO or AdWords. It's really just like being there, and being good enough to stick around. You know what I mean? And somehow that people recognize that.
What are typical services that you offer? Because I guess, what are different ways that you make a living as a lawyer?
Right. So, I mean, if I'm working on a lawsuit for somebody, they're paying me by the hour. You know what I mean? So it's just however much time it takes. That's what you pay the firm. My compensation is based somewhat around that, but we got to keep the lights on and pay the staff and whatnot. So there's overhead there for sure. There are, in personal injury cases, lawyers get paid usually through a contingency fee, which is like, no risk for the client. We're going to go out and pursue this. If we succeed, we're going to, take a third. And the third is kind of like the industry standard rate. And it sounds like a lot, but also I've seen people try to negotiate their own outcomes. They get hit, in a car accident and injured or something. And I mean, lawyers are almost always able to, I don't know. It seems like lawyers are almost always able to net the client more than they would have been able to get on their own, even after taking the fee out. So, again, I guess I'm promoting the industry right now.
Yeah.
but I also do personal injury work, and a lot of civil lawyers do, and that's a little bit more fulfilling work because you really feel like you're helping people. But other than that, I mean, I guess people pay flat rates for stuff. I don't really do flat rates.
That's what I was going to ask. Is a flat rate a thing?
It is. I mean, so I've always kind of had like a little bit more old school of a model, like when it comes to how I approach my practice. And that old school model is just billing by the hour. And some people don't like it. I think that it's like, look, I mean, you're only going to pay for the work that I do. And I don't know where things are going to go in your case. You know what I mean? Like, committing to a flat fee, one of us is going to get ripped off. It's either going to be me or it's going to be you. And we're not going to know until the end. And if it's you that gets ripped off, you're going to be mad at me,
How does one, I guess, start to figure out like what their hourly rate should be?
You just look at what other people around you are charging. I mean, I tell you what, my boss at Kuiper Kramer, Tom Kuiper, who's a great attorney in Grand Rapids, he's been doing it for a long time, and just an ace of a lawyer. He's talking about like, okay, well, you bump your rate up and see if anybody reacts, and like as it turns out, really. They don't. I think there was one year where my rate just about doubled, which sounds crazy, but really it brought me up to market rate, and nobody really questioned it. It's just like, yeah, that's what it costs to hire a lawyer.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. I would say it's the same in my field. I remember when I first started offering like studio time as a service, I didn't know what to charge. And I remember I was like 17, senior in high school, and there was only one studio that came up for Lansing on Google. And I just called there, like window shop. Hi, I was looking to book come make a song. How much does it cost? And they're like, studio time is, I think at this one was like $40 an hour, $30 an hour, way back, almost 20 years ago.
Which was pretty big money back then.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. they're professional and they charge this, so I'm gonna charge people like $10 an hour or something like that. And I guess my whole journey has been, what's the market right now? Oh, well, I don't know where to start, so I'm just gonna start below the market. Oh shit, I'm getting busy. It's working.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm too busy. I'm gonna bump it up.
Right.
Okay, it slows down a little bit, but I'm still busy enough. And then, fortunately, only 1 year did I bump it up too much to where I'd noticed like, oh shit,
Nobody's calling.
it really slowed down. Yeah, it was with videos 1 year. Like the prior year, I did 44 music videos, and then the year before that was like 60 something. The year before that was like 80 something, and then before that I was still around like 80 or so. So it was like every year I did a little bit less videos, but my price went up by 20 to 30%.
Right.
And then I did a little bit less videos, but then my price went up. But yeah, 1 year it went from 44 videos to 13.
Oh wow.
And then I was just thinking to myself, like, man, I have a gift from God to do this video stuff. And if God forbid something happened to me right now, like, I don't want the videos that are out there that I have done to only be the videos that are out there that I have done. Like, I wish there was way more videos. And if I've done 5 videos for you, I wish I've done 10 for you.
Right.
And I can't wait to do more. And then if I've done 3 for this guy, I can't wait to do 3 more for this person, especially with me continuing to get better. But, yeah, 1 year I made too big of a jump, and I was just thinking, like, it's one thing to turn down offers, but it's another thing. It makes sense to say, no, I can't do it for this price. This is what I charge. But if you don't have anything else going on, you kind of just turn down some money.
Right.
And yeah, it took me learning that lesson that year to like reflect, like, why did I have way less money on my, taxes this year? And it was like, well, you only did 13 videos, and that's not the only form of income, but that was a chunk of it.
Right. Are you doing usually like flat rates for videos? Is that how you do it, or?
It's back then, like when I first got started, it was just, there was only one guy doing videos and he charged $1,000 in Lansing, right? And so I was like, okay, well, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm gonna charge $100. So I just did my first video to see if I could do it. I know my first video was free. Yeah,
Sure.
First video was free. I was like, oh shit, I did that. That looks pretty good. Don't look as good as the guy that charged $1,000, but hell, maybe someone will pay me.
Yeah.
I think back then I was doing like $25 an hour for studio time, and I would see, okay, it takes 4 or 5 hours to shoot the video. Let's say it takes 5 or 10 hours to edit it, and I was just kind of doing the math of the 25, and then I thought to myself, no one's gonna pay me that. I'm not worth that yet. So I've tend to always underpriced a lot of the stuff that I did, but
I think that happens when you kind of come from like a DIY perspective on these things. Like when you're building your machine, you tend to think too much about where you were a year ago or 2 years ago, and maybe you get too critical of yourself, thinking like, well, people know that I was doing this for $100 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Like I'm not worth. I don't know if it's like an existential, crisis in a person's, mind, where it's like, I'm not worth it. It's probably just more like, I'm trying to figure out what's fair, and I don't want to rip people off, but I also don't want to rip myself off.
That word fair, that was a lesson I learned recently. So I've been only really reading books for like the last, I think, 3 years or so. And the reason why I started reading books was I've always sought information and took pride in learning and being good at learning. But I had always went to just YouTube. And I thought it was more stimulating to like watch a video and learn. But there was a guy named Daryl Leaves, and I had watched hundreds of his videos, and he would make videos on how to grow a YouTube channel. And I felt like I'd never learned anything. All he said was cookie cutter stuff. And he came out with a book. And I used to have the mindset of, oh, this person's trying to sell me. You're not going to get me. I'm not buying your book. But then I realized, like, that's stupid on my part, because the information is in the book. Like, there's a reason why he's charging for the book and doing the free YouTube videos. And so I was talking to a friend about YouTube. He was way younger, like maybe 21, and I'm 33 at the time. And I'm having these very advanced YouTube conversations of me being on YouTube for over a decade, and he knows what I'm talking about. And I was like, you don't mind me asking, how the hell do you know all this stuff about YouTube? You're so young, you've only been on YouTube for a little bit. He said, oh, I read this book by the guy, Daryl Leaves. I'm like, Daryl Leaves?
You got the shortcut.
I've watched all of his YouTube videos. He never says anything good. And he was like, oh, I learned this from his book. I said, did you really? That's good. That makes so much sense. And he shared more things. So I said, well, shit, I'm going to read the book
Get
now.
that book, yeah.
So I read the book and I thought, oh my God, for like a decade, I was the guy that was the mindset of, oh, you're just trying to get me to buy your course, not gonna get me. Or
Right.
you're trying to get me to buy your book, not gonna get me.
Right.
It'd be like me saying, you're just trying to get me to hire you to represent me, not gonna get me. It's like, but if you actually hired them, you're gonna get the best result possible.
Right.
With way less stress and way less effort in a shortcut the time. That's what
Right.
you're paying for.
Yeah. Well, and I mean that same model applies to being good at anything, right? Like I mean, being good as a lawyer, there are lots of things that like, I probably want to take a shortcut on. Like, I don't know. I'd prefer to, not go to this ICL class or something like that. ICL's it's like a continuing legal education thing. And there aren't requirements in Michigan, but you can choose to go and choose to, make yourself a little bit sharper on some topics. And every time I've done it, it's been great. And it's like, wow, I learned a lot more than I thought I was going to. And I think that's always been like a big driving thing. Like, just learn as much as you can about something if you like it. I mean, it's not hard anyway because you like it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been intentional with learning. So for the first probably 2.5 years of learning, it was all books on like personal development and business and marketing, but I had never studied sales. And how you're saying you're kind of in a pivotal moment in your career and life right now, the same. And so I was entering a new field offering services that I've never offered before. And I have all these people that were interested in working with me, but I felt like a lack of confidence in what I needed to say, because prior to this, I had sold beats, studio time, and music videos only for years and years and years and years and years. So I was so confident and I know what it takes to do it. But then it was offering like email marketing and videos or management or helping somebody run a website and get shows and stuff. And it was like, I don't really know what to charge for this type of stuff. And so I realized right now I'm struggling with a lot of like sales skills. So I used ChatGPT and I said, give me a list of, and I said to it, what I love about ChatGPT is I use it on my phone all the time. And I press this microphone button, and I go for a walk, and I talk to it like it's you. Like I talk to it like a person. I'll say, all right, so I'm this old. I've been reading books for the last few years. Right now I'm struggling with confidence in sales and negotiations. And I'm a very nice guy, and I'm overly nice. And I've learned that it's really great to be humble as a person and in life, but it's not great to be humble in business because you get taken advantage of.
Right.
So I asked ChatGPT, give me like the top 3 books, best reputation when it comes to sales.
Yeah.
And one of the very first book was, what was it called? Never Split the Difference, I think.
Okay.
But it was this former FBI interrogation person when there's like they have hostages and he's got to negotiate the stuff.
Right.
But
That's like high stakes sales.
Yes.
The
number one thing that I learned from this book was sound fair. And that basically, I've applied it, and it's helped me make tens of thousands of dollars just in the last few months, specifically from using sound fair. And I think it makes sense too. You talk about a price, or I know this is what you're looking to get. Here's what I'm looking to do. This is what I'm thinking. You mentioned this, this, and this. I told you about this, this, and this. This is what it normally is. So here's what I'm thinking, blah, blah, blah. Sound fair.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think to say no to sound fair, it kind of causes conflict and it's uncomfortable. So it's just way easier to say, yeah, it sounds fair.
Right. Yeah. No, well, and I wonder too if you're thinking back to that example you mentioned about the guy selling the YouTube, the book who's on making the YouTube videos. Maybe there was something about his approach as it hit you. It's like I don't know if I necessarily trust the motivations here. I don't know if it's fair, And I mean, I think we're always worried about being sold snake oil because there's so many people out there doing it. You
I don't
know
know why that is. Is it something from like childhood or something
I
that
don't
makes
know. I mean, I think that it's good to be cautious.
it is?
And really, it's incumbent on the salesperson or whoever's trying to sell you something to make sure that they're being transparent and honest. And if they're not, maybe they'll hit their demographic, but like it's not gonna sell to me. Like I just want to know what it is. I just want like the raw, unfiltered version of what it is and why I need it, or why I might benefit from it, and then I'll make my own decision. You know, and yeah, no, I mean, I hear you. It's funny because I've got a client that is in. I don't want to get into too much detail, but like a building trade, and they're from the sales department of a big contractor in Michigan, and they talk about like the sales pitch and like it's a finely tuned like script that moves with customer response and customer behavior, and really, I mean. You could say that it's designed to manipulate the customer into saying yes, which I mean, as long as they're happy with the outcome of the service or the purchase, that's fine. But I don't ever want to feel like I'm being manipulated into buying something. And so yeah, I think it comes back to the fairness. Like let me make my own decision as to whether or not I think this is worth it. Give me all the reasons why you think I should.
I think I just had a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
And whatever the next thing I'm selling, it's going to be that. It's just going to be transparent. It's going to say, yes, I am selling you a course. Before you run away, this is why. It took me 20 years to learn X, Y, and Z and blah, blah, blah. And I'm saving you the 20 years, something what I would charge for, my time to actually teach you how to do this would be thousands of dollars. Mm-hmm. So you can get access to this. I am selling it as I should sell it. This is how I'm going to make some money, and it costs this much.
Right.
But
right.
if I seen that, it'd be like, okay, he just broke it down. He logically, like rationally to say, I'm sure I could pay you hourly for 5 to 10 hours for you to teach me how to do a thing. But let's say instead of sitting down with me, charging me hourly, you sat down in front of the camera.
Right.
And then now it's a course that you could sell and it doesn't cost you your time anymore. Like you invest the upfront 10 hours with the camera and I can pay on your website and it automatically sends it to me. So it didn't cost you any time. So that's the reason why it's a fraction of the cost. And
right.
It'd be really easy for you to sell it that way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes, convincing people why they need, I mean, when you're selling information or a process, it's probably even more difficult. I mean, for me, it's not like somebody gets sued, or somebody needs to sue somebody. So it's like, they're not doing a whole lot of tire kicking. You know what I mean? Like they usually call and we talk and then they retain by the end of it. So like, I don't need to be a closer or like a good salesman because the need is there so much for the person. They know that they can't do it on their own. They know they're going to get run over if they don't hire somebody quick, So I'm in a lucky industry because of that. But when you're selling something that helps educate somebody, it almost kind of like begs the question, like, well, do I need to learn this? Why do I need to learn this? And what is it going to do to help me? But I mean, you've got it figured out. We were talking before about your the videos, like the instructional videos, like the how to make a music video videos, and that seems like a pretty tight demographic. But really, there's a lot of people out there. If you look at the 300 whatever million people in the United States and 7 billion in the world, like. A fraction of a percent is a big number still. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people that are just interested in watching that stuff. And maybe they get other benefits from it, even if they're not trying to, follow in your footsteps in that way. That's interesting.
I had a brain fart that was somewhere in there. I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. It's about, oh man, you're talking about leverage, your time. If you were to, let's say you were going to create a course based on the most frequent problems that you solve that people come to, I guess you have to represent them. So it's not even.
I mean, I could do, YouTube videos and stuff like that and kind of give like generalized advice. You always have to, mention a disclaimer. This is not personalized legal advice. And, if you have any questions, go talk to an attorney. And that's just good advice anyway. But there are probably things that I could give generalized advice on, and people could take it and run with it pretty far, and I've done that. I know we, I don't know, last March or something, we were both speaking at an event in Grand Rapids, and I was doing this thing where I tell people how to choose between, different business structures when they're kind of trying to get in business as a creative person, LLC or corporation, how to actually, go file for the LLC and how, what this text box means and, what it's asking you, you should put in there. And it's kind of like, I don't know, it's realistic instruction that isn't legal advice, but people don't know how to do it otherwise. And it saves them. I mean, there's a minefield out there. I've got, folks that started an LLC through LegalZoom or something, and they kind of overpaid for it, and now they don't even know who the registered agent of their company is, getting the mail. They don't know how to renew the LLC. So it's like, we got to take a holistic approach and like understand how the system works. And so I guess to address your point, I think it's possible to do that on a general level, but the stuff that people really hire a lawyer for, it's not that easy to teach unless you're trying to teach it to like a younger attorney,
I remember what I was going to say, that in business, like you have the most upside and obviously can make the most amount of money when the customer's in the most pain. And so like you said, usually people get sued. Like if I got sued right now, I'm kind of panicking, like, oh shit, what do I do? I'm calling you, I'm desperate. Mm-hmm. On that first call, is that where you go over like, tell me what's going on? Okay, just so you know, here's my rates, here's how this works.
Yeah, typical call, it could come in, via email or phone. Usually it's like a phone call or if it's like a return client, they might send an email and then we set up a call. But let's just say it's like a first time client, so they don't know, the process or how I work. I ask them questions. I kind of try to just understand, like, is there a legal claim here? And you get good at, kind of issue spotting and identifying the potential claims and potential defenses if they're being sued. And I don't know. I mean, it used to be earlier in my career, I would probably get, 9 bad calls for every one good one that stuck. And now it's kind of the other way around. And I think, again, it has to do with kind of how you're marketing, how wide of a net you're throwing out there in the community, trying to like just generate calls. But yeah, so now it's like people usually have a legitimate problem. We talk through it. It's like, yeah, send me over some documents. I'll take a look at those. If it's something where I do have to like look at a contract or documents or something like that to figure out, if there's a claim, then we'll have a follow-up call. But a lot of times I'm able to just kind of like wrap it up in the first call, get their information. I send them over a representation agreement via DocuSign. They'll sign it. I mean, after that, we can always still go our separate ways. I don't charge for the initial phone call. So, if I do a little bit more digging after they sign up, I've got to be frank with them. I got to be fair. You know what I mean? I'm ethically bound to be fair, but I mean, I'm morally bound to be fair.
Yeah.
So it's kind of both. And I don't want to rely just on the ethical requirements, but, it makes people happy when you're honest with them and transparent.
What are some situations where music artists would need to contact a lawyer or maybe should seek legal help?
Right. Well, there's a few. I guess I can just draw from some examples. I mean, musicians have industry-specific issues, but for the most part, musicians have the same issues that everybody else could have. Whether it's a criminal issue or a family law issue, a custody issue or a divorce issue, or maybe it's just like a business issue, trying to get the business set up. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're a musician or whether you're, selling popcorn or something. Like an LLC is an LLC. So a lot of the issues are really kind of the same as non-musician issues. But one thing that, like I get a lot of calls when a band realizes that, hey, we should probably have some documentation together, like a band agreement. That's a big one. I honestly don't get enough calls about that. I wish I got more because it's such a crucial thing. And I get more calls after the relationship falls apart and they're like, who gets the band name? Who gets the rights to the music videos? how do we distribute royalties? Do we buy the person out? How does this work? Or a band breaks up and half the band is using the band's name and the other half is using the band's name, but they're now two different bands trying to be the same band.
Every point that you just brought up, I've never even considered. And so this is where I think, like, if I was the content strategist for Chris Newberg, it would be YouTube videos or Instagram reels and different stuff like that about, here's a situation, and saying that, because now if I'm in a band, I'm prior to hearing that or seeing the video, I'd be thinking, oh no, I don't have any need for, legal help right now. But then I'd see that video and say, oh shit.
Yeah.
I need all of that done.
Right. And I think that is probably the most important thing. And I mean, some of the, I don't really litigate music disputes that often. I mean, there are cases, but it's not really with like the local music crowd. The economics of it just don't make sense.
I would say, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like nobody's making enough money to justify paying a lawyer thousands of dollars to try to collect thousands of dollars from a bandmate, because there's just not that much money available in the Pale to distribute. So I mean, and I do have some bigger entertainment cases that I've done. Those are a little bit different, but yeah, I mean, it's those types of partnership disputes. It's really a partnership dispute, in a band context that that snowball into the biggest problems for people. And we're talking about people's art, and it doesn't matter who you are in the band. If you've contributed something to it and you feel like you take ownership of it, you're apt to feel very very hurt if somebody tries to step on that. And so you just want to make sure that it's addressed, and you want to have these conversations when everybody's happy and on the same page. It's a lot easier to have them, because once the relationship falls apart, there's no talking sense into anybody. You're not going to be able to repair those things. And plus, sometimes it's better to kind of, design a structure to avoid potential problems before you know exactly what problem is going to arise, because then you don't see people try to manipulate the process to get a better outcome for themselves,
That's what I try to do now. Almost, there was an artist that I was talking to about managing at the end of 2024. And I asked them so many questions, because I've been through so many different partnerships on say a podcast, or a partnership or agreement with a certain business thing, or this thing or this thing or this thing. And I've seen where things go wrong and stuff like that. So I was really, really, really trying to prevent stuff and ask lots of questions. But I think I almost asked too many questions where to not like scare them off, or,
right.
Kind of, I think a lot of people like to just jump into shit.
That's scary though. I don't like that.
I don't like to either, because I want to protect myself, because I'm aware of, well, if you just jump into shit and you don't properly communicate roles or responsibilities, well, then you may assume that I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, but we didn't talk about that. And I'm assuming I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. So it's like very clear of like, which specific area do you need the most help with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think, whenever there's a relationship that is more complicated than just like, okay, I'm going to invest money in your company and you're going to run it. You know what I mean? Like, there's still a lot to hash out there, and you still want to make sure that you get it in writing. And again, hire a lawyer to put together the partnership agreement, but memorialize your thoughts in a text or an email and save it, But yeah, like in that context, like the music management context, or like really, like a band context too, or anything where it's like a long-term relationship between people, laying all these boundaries and expectations out on the table helps a lot. And sometimes, whether you should have a written band agreement. That's the way to do it. And you want to make sure that you really do it properly. It's almost like, look, guys, we have to go through and talk about each of these points together. And we have to have a constructive group conversation. This is kind of boring. I realize that we'd rather, smoke a joint and make a new song right now or something. But like, we got to sit down and do this. That way, when the shit does hit the fan, you can't say, oh, on page 50, in this, subsection here, it says you can't do it. It's like, no, everybody knows what they can and cannot do. Everybody knows what's going to happen if the band falls apart. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think it kind of helps people govern their behavior a little bit better too. They're not going out on a limb thinking, oh, well, screw these guys. I'm just gonna go on my own because I'm the one that has the login for the YouTube channel. And I'll just go change the password and, push this band my own direction. It's like, well, you can't do that.
Yeah.
you can't do that.
Yeah, I remember when Speed Gang was talking to me about being this manager, I was saying, give me like 24 to 48 hours to think about it and put something together. And then I remember what I put together, we presented to you. What was your thoughts on, I guess, have other people wrote up maybe like a management agreement before that you've seen and it was, I guess, less details or completely different, somewhat similar? How
Most of them have no detail.
Okay.
And that's because the manager is the one writing the contract. If I'm thinking back, and I don't remember all the details, but I know Speed Gang, I think, wanted some specificity in there too, and you did as well. So like it was perfect because that's really how you want a contract to read. The reason most management contracts don't have that specificity is because, like I said, it's the manager or the manager's team that's writing the contract, and they don't want to create more opportunities for them to breach than absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've seen a few pretty rough management agreements before, and I'm trying to figure out how the manager could possibly breach this agreement. And it's like I'm pulling my hair out. It's like, I don't think that the manager could breach this agreement. I don't think there's like any enforcement or any provision that requires the manager to really do anything other than collect his or her fee. And that's not fair. That's not fair for the artists, and artists get tripped up and ripped off by those, and they usually have sunset clauses. You see artists ditching their managers, and there's a sunset clause, and then they'll get a new manager. So now they're paying 30% of their revenue to managers for a number of years, even though they only have one manager. So I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about in the manager realm too. From like an artist perspective, there's also a lot to talk about from the manager's perspective.
What is a typical industry standard percentage for a music manager? Like, how does a music manager get paid, and what do they typically get paid?
I think that like the industry standard, at least the numbers I've seen, and it might be genre specific to an extent, is 15%. But as an artist, you want to be really cautious of that because that 15% is of revenue. That's not of your net. So your manager theoretically could, in an effort to boost you up, and really kind of get some traction, because managers can make a ton of money off this, if an artist blows up. They might put you on the road all year. And so, yeah, you might be making a lot of money, but you're spending like 90% of it on travel expenses. So you don't even have 15%. You don't even have a 15% net. So after you pay the manager, you're in the hole on it. And then you got to pay an agent 10%, for booking this stuff, which is, I think that's a very fair rate. But you see managers out there that are part of management companies, and they're big companies in Nashville or LA or New York, and they represent a ton of big artists, and they can really move some things and earn their 15%.
Yeah, I remember with Speed Gang, I did a lot of things that were just in my head, like out of my heart, the right thing to do. Once I seen the cost of travel and expenses with doing shows, because I could have, technically in the contract, it was just a percentage of all revenue, right? So, but when it came to shows, I specifically was like, here, I'm going to make a separate sheet, and it'll be what is profit,
right?
Because I seen how much the expenses were, and I thought, damn, that's gonna.
Right.
Yeah. So I did a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
That were,
and I think that's important. So there's, we talk, you got a manager, you got an agent. There's also like the business manager, which is usually something that only like the rich celebrities have, because they need somebody, keeping track of their finances and kind of liaising between them and the accountant. But, I always thought as a manager, your job shouldn't just be to get, their face on as many billboards as possible or make as many connections as possible. That's huge. And maybe your artist wants you to only do that. But like really making sure that the artist is thriving as, as a business, as a human being, making sure that they're making money, that your fee isn't putting them in the red, first of all, that, like you're saying, that you're not kind of overcharging for something that has built-in costs that aren't addressed, and making sure that they're happy and healthy and, not on the verge of, doing something crazy, which it becomes kind of emotionally difficult and mentally difficult to do that. Some artists are pretty far out there.
Yeah. Rock stars.
I
mean, it's a double-edged sword, because if the artist had all of their shit together, then they wouldn't really need your help with the management side.
They can self-manage, yeah.
But then the ones that really need your help, they're the hardest to manage.
Right. You're trying to kind of retrain, retrain like an uber creative brain, for example, into a brain that can think like a business person, right? And so I think, and when I've tried to fill that role as manager, it's been in scenarios like that where it's like, what, I want to make it so you don't have to worry about any of this stuff, but the caveat is you have to give me full control of everything.
Yeah.
And that's difficult, and I get it, and I respect that people don't want to do that. Like, I wouldn't just turn over the keys, to my house and, the password for my online banking just because somebody says that they can do it a little bit better than me. It's like, I don't know, I got to kind of protect myself here.
Yeah. Yeah, now with the artist that I was talking about managing at the end of last year, I look at it as like we're dating right now.
Kind of, yeah.
To, I guess, build up the trust, build up the, I guess, enough proof of this was an idea I had and you see it worked. Okay, remember this was an idea? You see that's working right now. Do you see this? Are you starting to see all this proof? Okay, kind of like, have I demonstrated value?
Right.
Now let's run. Right now we're crawling, but let's take off and run.
And I think you only have to do that maybe for the first few of them, right? And pretty soon you get a reputation, or I mean, you can say no easier because there's more people asking about it. It's like, well, look, I can demonstrate my success through my work with this person.
Yeah. And
maybe that's how they found out about you in the first place. So you don't really have to demonstrate it on the front end anymore. But I don't know. I'm all for loss leaders, man. I still take cases that don't pay nearly enough, if anything at all, because it's like I'm trying to it's kind of a gamble. You know what I mean? Like either I really want to help the person, or it's like this could be good for my career, to kind of break into this new area and see how I do. And I can't really in good faith charge somebody full rate for doing something I've never done before. And I don't know, that's true in music production and and law and what you're doing, everything that you're doing.
Yeah. Real quick, if you're a music artist and you're looking for the smartest, most effective, most efficient way to go about promoting your music, I got something for you. So what I did was I sat down, I was thinking about it, like if I were to really help an independent music artist promote their music, what would I do? And I knew it would be creating content on social media. So what I did was I walked you guys through how to optimize your social media, how to come up with the ideas, what equipment you may or may not need or could use. And then I walk you through where I was actually with specific music artists, and I show you guys how to create different types of content that actually works to promote your music. Then I walk you through how to edit the content. And then I go through posting the content on all different platforms. So if you guys are interested in that, go to crackHouseStudios.com. When you go to the website, you'll see an area that says courses and coaching. You'll go to courses, and then you'll see promoting your music. So check out the course, and back to the podcast. What would be some of the best advice that you could give to somebody that was interested in following in your footsteps? And let's say right now they're in the middle of college and they're thinking, how the hell do I balance my career, and I'm going to school and I'm going to do this thing, but I also want to do music. Is it possible to do both? Is it one or the other? Do I burn where they burn the boats, or
yeah?
I
don't, I mean, it's a tough question. Like I said, I feel like I had a lot of luck helping me along. Like things, I was prepared at the right time, but opportunities came up and presented themselves. And I'm not doing a ton of music law. I think like the dream that I had in college about being, an agent or a music lawyer, it's like I probably could have pushed on those things a little bit harder, but I'm not sure that I would be happier right now if I did. So I kind of followed my arrow. I guess advice would be like figure out what what you're truly interested in, and you can't figure it out just by sitting there and thinking about it. You know what I mean? Like you got to get out there and I mean, intern, extern, get out of your comfort zone. Like absolutely get out of your comfort zone as much as you can, because you're just going to be complacent otherwise. And I guess I'm drawing that advice off of some of the criticisms I might have of myself when I was that age, where it was just like, you know, do this the hard way or the easy way. Let's do it the easy way.
Okay.
You know, had I done things the hard way a little bit more, I might have discovered some things sooner that took me a long time to learn, you know, just in terms of like preferences, you know, like the type of people I like working with, kind of how to draw boundaries, you know, when to draw boundaries. You know, and that's, I don't know, that's specific to the legal world. A lot of people go into the legal world with a pretty, you know, good idea of what it is they want to do. I say, you know, just read as much as you can, or get information as much as you can. You know, go to a law office and see if they'll hire you as an assistant or something. You know, I mean, and that sounds uncomfortable. That sounds uncomfortable for me, and I kind of get a little anxiety thinking about the idea of having done that back when I was in law school. But I mean, the theoretical knowledge of doing what I do is 50% of it. Learning how to kind of navigate the procedure and just, you know, dealing with the administrative day-to-day stuff is, I mean, at least 50% of it.
Is it?
It is, yeah. I mean, it's, you know, I probably same with you to an extent. Like, I mean, in order to shoot a music video, you got to have obviously a great understanding of how to shoot video and how to use the equipment and, you know, what looks good and you know, I mean, you could explain that a lot better than I do, all the considerations that go into it. But at the end of the day, you still have to sell yourself and you still have to get paid by people. Yeah. And not go broke in the process, which means kind of managing your own finances and making sure that you're smart about that. That's another big one. I was probably a little dumb with some student loan money. Like I said, I took a couple victory laps there.
Yeah.
But I don't know, having good financial awareness, having an understanding of like how your taxes work, you know, just look at a tax return, try to figure out like, how is what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis going to fit into this at the end of the year? It sounds really boring. I realize, like, you know, you don't have to just go look at tax forms, but this is advice that, like, I don't know. I took a little later on, but I did take it, and it's like been hugely beneficial to me. Not so much in my career, but just in terms of like having an understanding of like money.
Are you big on setting goals?
I guess, to be honest, I'm not. And it's not that I'm not big on it. Like I don't support it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not good at it, honestly. Okay. Like, I should be better at it. I mean, I set some goals last year. Last year was the first year in maybe forever, I don't know, a good while, that I actually had New Year's resolutions, and I wrote them down and I kept them on my desk and I looked at them every day.
That's the most important part, is just like, it's just being reminded of them.
Yeah.
I was joking with my wife yesterday. She we have a personal goal, and I said, I damn near want to tattoo it on my hand so I see it every single day until it's done. But then I was like, but then once it's done, it's there for.
Now, I think that's big. You know, having a cork board on the wall, you know, just pin things up on it. Stuff that you look at every day, whether you want to or not, or like in the bathroom in the morning. I know, you know, mentioned my dad makes teeth. I used to go to work with him when I was a kid sometimes, and in his office, you know, they always had a big number. They'd print it off on paper, and it was like this big. So, you know, and they're using, you know, just normal size paper. So it was always kind of taped together and looked janky, but it was a number. And I don't even know what the number represented, if it was like their revenue or their net or something. It was a sales. It was a dollar number. Yeah. And it was the number that they shot for every year. And I remember looking at that number every single time I was there. So I'm sure they saw it a lot, you know, and I'm sure they hit that number. Either way, it gave them something to aim for, you know. I think, perhaps the stressor of creating a goal is feeling like you have to accomplish it then. But that's the point of a goal, right? Yeah. So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, maybe I'm learning something about myself. Maybe I got to set more goals and get over the discomfort of having to accomplish them, because that's the damn point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm good at setting goals, but my problem is I set too many goals. And so then it's like a spread thin. Yeah. Somewhere it was like, maybe Warren Buffett said, if you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have priorities. Right. You know, because even right now, if you would ask me, what are your goals for this year? I'd be like, okay, well, this podcast is a new thing. So my podcast, it's like, nice studio. Yeah, well, the studio too. And then if my wife popped in, it'd be like, my family, yup. I went to the gym today. So my personal care, self-love, whatever the hell you want to call it. I just got back from shooting a music video. Oh yeah, music videos are another thing, you know, so there's a lot of different things. And that's always been my biggest struggle is I have so much ambition. So like, I want it all.
Right.
But then I'm limited by like, I guess reality hits me and it's, you can do everything or you can do anything, but you can't do everything at once.
Right. Well, and I think that there's something to be said about that too. Maybe not so much in the goal context, but like, you know, like you could try to be a jack of all trades, and I'm guilty of it sometimes. You know, it's like I get a little ahead of myself when it comes to like a home improvement project or something, or you know, it's like, oh, I can do this, I'll figure it out. You know, and it always works out. But like at the end of the day, I mean, and as boring as it sounds, like if I stay in my lane, I can do a really good job in that lane, and I can do a better job than I'm doing now because I'll be devoting more time to it, and I can help more people through that. I can probably make more money through it, so that I can pay somebody who's good at doing this to do that. Or
yeah, that's the goal.
You know, I don't know. I mean, it's. I think I heard you mention that you have ADHD. I do too.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have a tendency to think about a lot of things at once. You know what I mean? And to want to do a lot of different things at once and be good at a lot of different things. And I don't know. I think it's a blessing rather than a curse.
When people think of you, what would you want them to associate with your personal brand?
I guess I've never thought about that before. That's a good question. I mean, yeah, how would you describe what I consider to be my brand?
Obviously, lawyer.
Yeah, today I'm in the lawyer suit. I came out of a hearing in Lansing here. I probably wouldn't dress this formally otherwise, but yeah, on a day like today, I want people to think that I'm a lawyer. I want them to think that you know, I'm well put together. So, you know, appearance is part of it. Making sure my hair is short, you know, and well maintained most of all, and that, you know, that the suit looks good and doesn't stink, which sounds obvious, but man, you'd be surprised what you see at the courthouse sometimes. You know, people with pants torn out and stuff like that. It's like, pull it together, you know. I don't know. I think what I would want people to see is that, you know, I've got a creative component, but I can also couple that with, you know, a pragmatic kind of business sense and, you know, incorporate that fairness. But otherwise, I don't feel like I'm really selling myself as an individual all that often. It's more kind of like caricatures of myself. Me, the lawyer, me, the musician, you know?
Yeah. I like to look at it as like Chris Newberg, the tree, and then there's branches, right? So one branch is the lawyer side, one branch is, and this is what I know of you from what I know of you. Yeah. I would say, oh, he's a lawyer, because that is originally how I first met you. Then I found out that, oh, he's also a musician. And then we were friends on Facebook, and it's, oh, he's married and he's a dad. So I see the family aspect. Mm-hmm. I ask these questions because a lot of what I'm getting into now with like the next chapter for myself is more like brand strategy for individuals and businesses, and also incorporating content. And so I like to ask people about, you know, everyone has a personal brand. A lot of people don't think that they do, but the personal brand is just what people associate with you whenever they hear your name. So if somebody says Crackalack, it might be, some people might say, oh, isn't that the guy that was with Speed Gang all the time? That was his manager. So one of the branches off my tree was I was Speed Gang's manager for a year. Mm-hmm. But then some people may hear Crackalack and they think, oh, I'm friends with his wife on Facebook. It's like, you know, husband.
Completely different relationship,
you know?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I don't know, like a good brand strategy, content strategy is being intentional with what you want people to associate with you. So I like to ask people that, and then knowing that it's like, okay, cool. So here's how we could do content strategy based on, you know, people wanting that. Like I intentionally want people to know that I'm also a dad, because somebody could say specifically with music videos, if one person was like, let's say me and another guy were similar in quality for music videos, maybe even similar in price, but maybe this guy, all he posts is just the product. Like here's a video, here's a video, here's a video. But then I post more and they see, oh, he's married, I'm married too. I'm kind of more drawn to this guy. oh, I kind of like his personality. He seems kind of funny, or he seems smart, or he's got a daughter. Man, I'm a girl dad too. I'm way more drawn to this guy, but they would have never even had the opportunity to like grab onto one of those branches if all I shared was just, here's my video, here's my video.
Right. It's kind of like the more detail you give, the more, I don't know, the more helpful it can be, because you're giving people more things to kind of latch on to or relate to, you know, even if they don't necessarily relate to it, just knowing who you are, being a human being, you know, is important. And I don't know, you asking that question kind of makes me think more. And it's like, you know, even beyond like trying to figure out how to properly brand yourself or market yourself, or to know, you know, kind of where your brand stands. It's like, maybe it's good to think about like, how do people think of me? Like how would this person think of me? You know, how would that person think of me? How would, like, you know, the average, like on the whole, how are people thinking about me? How would they be assessing me? And I don't know, maybe you run into some things that's like, maybe I should change that about myself, you know, add it to the goal list. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question. And I think it's like, you know, what do you want to be known for? You know, we could all say good things about ourselves. Like, oh, I want to be known for, you know, being faithful and being fair and honest and funny and all these things. It's like, but are we actually doing it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say is next for you now, like over the next 5 years or 10 years, or kind of what are things that you have in the works right now that you're excited about or have coming soon? Or
Right. Well, so I guess, you know, the family situation, the kids and their age kind of govern a lot of it. Our youngest is 15 months. So it's kind of a madhouse at home, you know, and there's a lot of running around, a lot of focusing on that. When I moved to my new firm in 2022, we were at kind of a point where our youngest was like 2 years old, just about to be 2. And things started to kind of back off a bit. And it's like, okay, I got some space to kind of push it a little bit harder, push a little bit further. You know what I mean? I see that feeling coming back within the next year here. And I'm hopeful that I will be able to kind of shift some of the energy that I've been, you know, keeping at home with the family back into my career, probably mostly on the law side, just because in order for me to maintain my, you know, my duties to my family, I gotta do a good job there. And I'd love to make more money. I mean, wouldn't we all, right? You know, on the music side, it's kind of hard to say. I have a whole bunch of things. It's like a music, fleeting ideas, you know? I mean, I'd love to produce more.
Okay.
That's kind of how I got really involved in, you know, more involved in music anyway. Like I said, I never really saw myself as an artist, but I'd love to do more of that. I'd love to, you know, I'd love to work with more artists in the area on, really on the creative side, less on the business side, although that's always in the pocket too.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
I'd like to get out more, man.
Yeah.
You know?
What about speaking? Like how you said we both spoke. That was my first time ever speaking. Do you remember your first time speaking on stage?
Man. I mean, it wasn't long before that. It would have been, I was there because of my involvement with the Michigan Music Alliance, which is a Michigan-based nonprofit that helps creatives, we'll say, you know, people in music or people that, you know, want to work with the music industry or work within the music industry. We kind of help them streamline their, you know, like the business understanding, trying to get things in order, trying to, you know, figure out like, how do we make this work as a career, as a profession? You know? So I was there in that context, and I had done a few speaking engagements with the MMA or on behalf of the MMA before, and not a whole lot though, man. To be honest, it's not like the most comfortable thing for me.
No, same. I was shitting my pants basically the night before. I was trying to make a slideshow. Yeah. Like I know you had a slideshow, it seemed like everyone there had a slideshow. And I knew that I understood the topic I was talking about to where I could just go live on Instagram and just do it, you know? But I struggled with the specific, like the executing of making a slideshow, like I guess consolidating my thoughts into how do I put this into slideshow format? Like this first, then this, then this. And then eventually I thought, you know what? I remember talking to Malik because he had been to different events where people were speaking, and he said, my favorite part's always the Q&A. Like I kind of let them get through the talking, but I love being able to actually like ask questions or hear questions that other people in the audience ask. So I thought, well, shit, let me flip this negative of I'm unprepared and I don't have a slideshow to actually I'm intentionally no slideshow or nothing, and just ask me questions.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to do those, honestly. You know, I mean, again, I don't, it makes me uncomfortable to speak publicly. I think it always kind of has, but I've had to get over it being a lawyer, because you kind of go into these, you know, high pressure situations where there's people looking at you and you have to say smart stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have to remember what you came to talk about. So I think that kind of like, you know, maybe softened up some of the edges for me, but I want to be effective when I speak, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not like, I don't have this background in speech where I can really like, you know, channel my energy and make an emotionally moving statement and, you know, have everybody standing up and cheering and I'm banging on the table. It's like, I would just look like I'm going crazy if I did that. So I think like the Q&A thing makes a ton of sense. Like, look, folks, what are you here for? Like, let's just make it a conversation and I'll tell you about everything I know, but I don't want to tell you about stuff you don't care about.
Yeah. I think I'm going to do exactly that. I want to teach like the similar content creation, but here in person and have like a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And what I thought about that I think would be valuable, obviously I would know all of the stuff that people would need to know, but I'm imagining everyone coming in and then being like, here, we're going to go around the room. Like, what question do you have about content creation? And they may say, how often should I be posting? So it's like, okay, posting frequency, everyone agree? Okay, let me write that down on the whiteboard. We're going to touch on that. It's like, what question do you have? Like, what equipment do I need? What cameras and microphones, and what is your filming process? So I'd be like, okay, equipment and filming process. But I'm going to try an event like that,
right,
and see how it goes.
Yeah, no, I think that's the way to do it. And I mean, it keeps people engaged, right? Because you could talk to them all day, but if they're not engaged, they're not going to take anything away from it.
Yeah.
Right. You know, so I thought you did. I thought you did a great job at that event, and I thought it was interesting during the Q&A. I think you asked like, you know, how many people are, you know, content creators out there, and you know, like a number of people stood up, and there were a couple, like one in particular, I think they had just like a ton of followers.
Yeah, it was
kind of
like
a shocking number.
Leave your hand up if you have over 100 followers. And I was like, okay, leave your hand up if you have over 1,000 followers. And like most people's hand went down. There's like, leave your hand up if you have over 10,000 followers. And I think there was somebody that still did.
Yeah.
And then I said 100,000 followers, and somebody had their hand up. I was like, oh shit, good job.
Like legit.
Like, here, let's switch spots. I'm gonna come sit down and you come up here and tell everyone what to do.
Yeah, but I mean, you wouldn't know that looking at the crowd otherwise. You know what I mean? And it's like that person's there for something probably completely different than anybody else. I mean, you know, it was a pretty broad group there. It wasn't like specific, you know, just to musicians. And I don't know, Monk did a great job putting it together.
I was gonna ask, how long have you known Monk?
I didn't really know him that long before that event. I think that was really the first time that we'd worked closely together. But again, we met through the Michigan Music Alliance, and, you know, as two nonprofits kind of doing similar stuff with similar, you know, followers, I guess, you know, the people who are, you know, potentially interested in what we're doing. We had talked about, you know, doing collabs and stuff before, and those conversations are still going on. I mean, that's what we do in the nonprofit realm. You know, you just collaborate with other people and you continue to share what it is that you share that serves your purpose.
What advice would you give for collaborating and networking and meeting other people? I
mean, do it as much as possible. So one thing that I did in 2018 with a group of close friends is we started this project. It was a Christmas album, and then it kind of spawned into something more than that called Christmas at Critters. Critters, my nickname in the music realm, not in the legal realm. But yeah, so
I didn't know that, and I'll remember that now.
Yeah, great. I mean, people do call me that, and I respond, and I should probably be more careful about where I am so I can pretend like it's not me. You know,
okay.
If it's like, you know, important, but no, absolutely call me that. So the idea, like the premise was to record this Christmas album, bring in a whole bunch of friends, you know, all my musician buddies in Grand Rapids and stuff, and bring them over to my house and you know, record an album there, you know, record our favorite Christmas songs or maybe throw some originals in there. So we did that, and it was the biggest, craziest collaboration I'd ever done up to that point in time. And then we did it again the next year, and we've kind of been doing it a little bit since then. But man, I mean, I made so many more friends than I had, like closer friends, you know. I mean, we had like 45 people involved in the live event. We did a live event in 18, 19, 21, and 22. and 18 and 19 were the big ones. But you know, there were a lot of people there, and it was great to, you know, there's like 4 different drummers, you know, so it's like for, you know, like from a recording engineer's perspective, it's awesome because you get to like really learn their nuances and you know how they're getting tones and what they're doing, and then you bring in somebody else the very next day and it's completely different. And you know, it's like watching their styles, and so it really kind of opened up a huge door creatively for me, and so I am all for that kind of collaboration. You know, like do it as much as you can. It's not going to hurt anything. You know what I mean? And a lot of the biggest songs in the world are big collaborations.
Yeah. Yeah, and you said you guys did a Christmas, was it just a song or a Christmas album or a project?
So we did an album the first year and actually printed it to CD and sold it, you know,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that? Like,
absolutely.
If I was a music artist tomorrow, I would be thinking about like replay value. And so like Mariah Carey, for example, she goes nuts every single year from like November to December. And yeah, I've been mentioning that to all the music artists I've been talking to lately about, you ever think about making a project that's like Christmas songs, but how do you go about, let's say, Silent Night or Jingle Bells? Legally, how am I allowed to release a song called Jingle Bells, or do I have to change the name, or can I change some of the words? How does that?
So yeah, we were just doing straight up covers. Like we weren't even trying to get cute about it, but we got licenses. I you know, had the advantage of knowing that you had to watch out for that, you know?
Okay.
But there's a company called the Harry Fox Agency, and they have Song File or something. It's the Harry Fox Agency.
Okay.
It's like an Indiana company, weird location, but they do licenses for covers. So basically the idea is that you pay like, I don't know, if you're gonna, I think it's like 9.1 cents for every dollar you make off the song. So basically, if you're going to buy, you know, 500 CDs and sell them, you kind of just do the math. You end up paying them like $20 to get a license or something, however the math works out. And then you're good. And sometimes when you're uploading, you know, music to streaming platforms through TuneCore or CD Baby, they ask you like, is this a cover? And you check the box and say, yeah, it's a cover. And they're like, okay, give us the license number. And you're like, oh, I need a license. But yeah, that's how you do it. You go to, you know, just Google Harry Fox Agency. They represent most of the rights holders in that realm. Sometimes an art like a song won't be on, you know, won't be available there. And so you have to get a little more creative and maybe reach out to publishing or maybe just take your chances. But we got lucky and we were able just to license them all that way and, you know, at a relatively minimal expense.
What are different examples of ways you can just avoid needing a license? Like, how much do you have to change it? Let's say I replayed with a bell and it's a trap rap song beat, but it's a Jingle Bell melody, but I'm playing it with a different sound and adding drums to it, and some rappers rapping about getting drunk on Jingle Bells or something like that. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, so you'd probably be fine in that context. I don't know where the line is. The line is almost intentionally grayed out because...
Seems like that. That's why it's frustrating.
Yeah, it is frustrating. I think that there's a lot of factors to consider too. I mean, one is where the line is legally, and we may never know because again, it's great. You know, but the other question is, what is the risk of non-compliance? You know, is the rights holder actually keen on enforcing this right? You know, I'm not, this is definitely not advice to go cover Taylor Swift song, but based on kind of the way that she presents, you know, her artistry, it doesn't seem like she's very selfish about her rights. Not like selfish is the right word, she's just enforcing them. But, you know, if it were an artist like Taylor Swift, I wouldn't be as concerned about getting accused of infringing on something if I'm covering one of her songs, just by way of example. And again, I'm not saying that that's advice that anybody should take. I'm just saying, you know, you kind of get a feeling, you know, and then there are some artists that are going to be like more litigious and you can just see it through their history, you know. Like, yeah, the estate of Marvin Gaye, you know, I mean, I'm not saying they're litigious at all. I'm just saying there's a well-publicized lawsuit where they were, you know, going after the Blurred Lines, you know, composition for infringing on, I forget the name of the Marvin Gaye song, but, you know, and they've had other big lawsuits too. So it's like, you don't want to mess with any Marvin Gaye song.
Okay.
They'll kick you.
Okay. Yeah. I guess there's a few times that I ran into it, but I would say the biggest situation was Marilyn Manson came out with Sweet Dreams. Sweet Dreams are made of these, right? So I took the guitar part, and then I think I raised the pitch, so I altered it and I sped the tempo up, but then I put like rap drums to it, and then music artist, like, you know, he had all original lyrics and rap to it, and that was like the first song that I produced to get 1 million views and stuff. But with YouTube, we had got they don't give you a copyright strike or anything, but they say, hey, you know, Universal Music owns this.
They knew that it was there.
Yeah.
They found it. Yeah, man. Yeah, their bots are good. Their bots are really good.
I just didn't know if there was something that we could have done to, I don't know, be able to still
record it yourself. You record that part yourself. So there's copyrights that cover the master recording, which is what we're talking about. If you're taking a sample from a song, that's the master rights, and that's a right that the artist or the label has, whoever's, you know, basically holding.
So you have to get the permission if you're taking from there.
If you're going to sample a song like that, you have to get their permission. If you are taking something from the composition, whether that be like a vocal melody, even if you're like changing a vocal melody, adding different words to it, but you're still following the same lines, like that's probably getting too close to the composition. If you do a cover of a song, you're using the same lyrics, that's going to be that's going to be a composition issue. So the composition issues you take care of through Harry Fox.
Okay.
The sampling issues, you know, with the masters, you have to take care of through the label. And sometimes labels just won't get back to you, you know. So I mean, like, yeah, if we're talking about a guitar part, you know, from a popular song, and it's just a guitar part, like, and it's not crucial. I mean, there are some guitar parts that nobody could ever replicate. They're just so iconic, you know, like a Hendrix part or something. Like, everybody's going to know that you tried to copy it,
okay,
and you did a poor job, which would be legal, but it would just ruin the song, maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. Anytime that you can recreate it on your own, I'd say definitely do that, because the copyright doesn't really extend to individual parts of the instrumentation of a song. There's probably a line that you could cross there, like if you know, took the Stairway to Heaven guitar solo and again, like, made it a vocal melody, because it's kind of integral to the composition. But I don't know. I mean, maybe the line doesn't even extend that far. I could be wrong about that.
There's something about, I think it's 7 years or 10 years or something with bringing back songs. I notice a lot of rap songs now are like the same melodies from songs that came out 15 years ago or 10 years ago or something. And I seen somewhere something along the lines of, after so many years, you can. So
yeah, I mean, it's longer. So for something to wind up in the public domain, it's longer than that. It's like 75 years or something like that. We're getting to the point where popular music is starting to, you know, face that moving wall as it's knocking their copyrights off and pushing the work into the public domain. But if you think about it, back in 2015, you know, 10 years ago, 75 years ago was like 1940, and there wasn't hardly any recorded music, you know, out there even. So we didn't really see the impact of you know, public domain, except for, like, you know, if we're talking, you know, old church songs or something like that were written in the 1700s, you know. So, but there, I don't know. I guess it depends on the specific context of what you're talking about. So obviously we see artists, again, like Taylor Swift, going back and re-recording their music. You can re-record your song just fine, create a new master. And then you can make all the money from your master, essentially throw your label under the bus and you know, try to kind of rob them of, not rob them, do it legally.
Yeah.
But you know, take the lion's share of the streams from them and bring them over to you. And Taylor Swift's been very effective at doing that. Probably one of the only people big enough to magnetically pull everybody from the songs that they're used to hearing to the newly recorded songs, which are slightly different, but similar, you know, and make those the new songs now.
How
much different, I guess, than what you're probably asking about.
Yeah. How much of a percentage does the producer usually lose when sampling something? There's an artist, Juice WRLD. He had came out with a song called Lucid Dreams, and I guess he took part of the melody or something with a Sting.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I think it was Sting or Bon Jovi or, you know, someone along those lines. But he had got sued because, you know, it was their stuff. But can you be sued for up to 100% of whatever you got from it? Or is it usually a smaller percentage or like half percentage or?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, yeah, if you get sued, really, like, I think the remedy for the person suing you is monetary damages, right? And so the Copyright Act has statutory damages, which is just like, if you break this law, you can either pay this number, up to this number, and I think it's like $150,000 or something, per infringement, which is kind of hard to compute in a situation where you've made a song and it's being played all over the place. Like, what constitutes an infringement? Is it any time the song's played? So, I mean, in that context, you probably would look less at that, category of damage computation, look more, towards or you can collect your actual damages, or lost profits or the profits that maybe they, earned that they shouldn't have earned. And that's just a kind of a product of math. But really, these things should be negotiated. If it gets to the point of, someone like Sting suing you because you sampled one of the Police's songs or one of his songs or something, all they're looking for is to get a kickback on the royalty side
too. Because I remember certain artists saying, "Oh no, that's I don't mess with any samples because I'm not trying to get sued." But I would say to them, and I didn't even know if I was 100% right, that you're not really taking the risk. It would be me as the producer, and they would only be able to sue, I guess, me for up to a certain percentage of what we
They'd be
back.
able to sue both of you.
Okay.
They'd be able to sue both of you. And yeah, I mean, how you would apportion that. I mean, really, realistically, they're probably primarily suing the artist or the label, just because we're talking, who's got the deepest pockets, that like is most apt to make a good deal with us here. And really, like, the buck does stop with whoever is putting the music out there. You can make infringing music all you want as long as you don't share it with anybody.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I mean, if you're profiting off of music that has infringement in it, it's, as a producer, you could be, subject to some damages. As an artist, you could. As a label, you could. As a publisher, you could. You want to. Well, maybe not so much a publisher, but depends on the kind of infringement. But no, there is concern there, and again, the line is not incredibly clear. I know, like, Girl Talk is basically. You've heard of the artist Girl Talk? It's basically just all samples. It's really cool stuff, actually. And it's a guy. I think he might have tried to, make it available for download for a donation, maybe try to get around some of those issues. But I mean, it's really tough. Sampling is an area that it's hard for me to give advice to people on, because if I give them general advice, they'll remember it and then maybe misapply it. And it's really kind of a case-by-case basis. And like I said, thinking about, like, okay, whose song is this? Is this person even paying attention to this stuff? And again, not like we're trying to infringe people in their sleep, but I mean, again, there's so many factors. How much of it are you using? How prominent is it in the song? Is it really like, like the Vanilla Ice song, using that Queen lick? I mean, that was a pretty crucial part of the song, that bass, that bass line. So
yeah.
I don't know if the song would have really worked without that. So I can understand why Queen might get upset. I don't know if Queen got upset.
Okay.
They might not. They might just say, that's fine.
After this, I'm going to look that up. I want to see.
Yeah.
Because that's such a huge song.
It is, yeah. It's kind of one of the quintessential, like, sampling examples. And I mean, sampling wasn't really huge before, the late 80s, 90s, when hip hop was, kind of becoming more popular.
Okay. Where can people find you to get in contact?
Sure. So, I mean, if you Google Chris Newberg lawyer, you'll probably find me. Turns out there's another Chris Newberg from Michigan. He's in LA now. He's a comedian. He's huge. He's kind of ruining my Google search results.
So they have to put lawyer.
We've laughed about it before too, but yeah. So you add lawyer, you find me. Again, my firm in Grand Rapids, the firm that I work at, is Kuiper Kramer. Spelling, if you're not familiar with Dutch last names, is a little tough, but you'll probably get close enough to find it. I'm on Facebook. That's a pretty good way to get a hold of me, especially if you don't want to have to go through, like, more formal channels. Like, I don't hold myself to a very formal standard. Like, if you got an issue, if you got a question, just reach out to me. You know what I mean? I'm happy to answer questions for anybody. And and I don't charge music. You know, like 90% of the music stuff I do is not something I can charge for, not something I would charge for.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm happy to speak with creatives of all sorts. I like it. It's a change up from suing insurance companies and, you know, fraudsters and other bad people out there. It's kind of nice to deal with folks that I don't know, I can kind of like identify a little bit closer with from a personality standpoint.
You know, I definitely sense the passion when it comes to music.
Yeah, and it's kind of annoying actually, probably for most people. You know, like my wife and stuff. It's like, you know, all I do is think about music and hum music and beat on the counter.
Yeah.
You know, make too much noise and pay too little attention to other things that probably matter.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Well, thank you, Chris, for coming on the Free Game with Crack
Yeah, thank you,
podcast.
Crack. Pleasure being here, man. I'm honored.
Absolutely. Hey, guys, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, drop a comment, let us know what was your favorite part of the episode. And if you're listening on Spotify, please do me a favor and give this a 5-star rating. Screenshot it, tag Free Game with Crack on social media, tag myself on Instagram as crack_lack. I'll see you guys next episode. Thanks for tuning in.